In this video, I plan to fold a saw back for a dovetail saw. I'm going to start with some angle that's formed angle, or not formed, but bent angle that came from Lowe's. This is 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch angle, 14 gauge. This piece is 10 inches long. So the first thing I need to do is attend to my vise. I've taken out the stock jaws, which have this diamond pattern on them, which would scar up my back, and I've replaced them with a set of jaws that is completely smooth on both sides. And these are just made from cold rolled steel in the shop, and hopefully they'll be just the thing. Now the other thing I'm going to do is use a little magnet to hold the back up in the jaws so that I can get a good straight bend on it. So we'll get started here. Alright, clean all the filings off my magnet to start off with so it's not getting anything in the vise jaws that are going to make dings and dents in my saw back. Close these up a little bit. And put my magnet across the top. Now, what I'm going to do is just set the back in there against that magnet so it holds it level with the top of the vise. And try that again. Take two so that I can get a little bit of a bend on it. Now the thing you have to be careful with this is that you don't try to take too big of a bite at one time, because what you'll end up doing is putting a kink in your angle, and it's really difficult, if not impossible, to get those out. And by too big a bite, I mean not trying to crank down too many turns on the vise. You just want to go at this real slow and gently and take your time. And I just work back and forth. On the last bend I go a little bit farther than on the rest of them, and then I start going back the other direction. And just try to bring the vise handle about to where I brought it on that last bend. And there's about 9 o'clock on the handle. Okay, I came to 9 o'clock, but I'm at the end of my angle, so I'm going to go ahead and take it a little bit farther. And go back the other way. Take it to the same degree. Now take that to the same as the last one, and then go a little bit farther. And just continue on this path until you have this thing folded in half, and you can see that I haven't gone very far at this point. So it takes quite a bit of time. If you've got a friend in the sheet metal business, this would be a good time to take advantage of that friendship and get him to bend this for you. It bends relatively easily until you get into almost a parallel U shape, and this is not quite parallel, but it sprung back a little bit when I released the vise. But at this point, you're not only squeezing the ends together, you're trying to crush this bend radius here, and it gets really resistant to that. So at this point, I'll have to start using a cheater bar. Alright, so here comes the more difficult part. I think I did. think I can still salvage that. I took it just a little bit too far right in here. You can see that. The rest of it's nice and parallel all along here until you get to that one pinch point, and the rest of this is parallel. So I'll see if I can salvage this. I was able to use a piece of wood in the slot while I crushed down next to it, and then just went back along everything, and I've got the edges pretty much parallel at this point, so we're looking better. At this point, the two edges that are coming together are narrower than the back, so every time I crush it into the vise now, I'm squeezing the back together. So I'll keep doing that. I won't try and pinch these edges together until I get this as tight as possible. At some point I'll have to turn it vertical in the vise and take smaller bites because it'll get just too hard to squeeze with the short cheater bar I'm using. If I get one spot pinched a little too tight, I'll put a little wedge in there and squeeze next to it and try and get it parallel again. I'm going to concentrate on just squeezing the back part here and leave this part sticking up out of the vise. At this point I'll work vertical in the vise because I'm only taking about an inch big squeeze on it, the width of the vise jaws. When I'm going across horizontally, I'm taking about a 5-inch bite, so it makes it pretty tough to squeeze. With this I can squeeze now without the cheater bar so much. Okay, right now I'm reading about 175 at the closed end and about 250, 245 at the tall end. Those need to be about 25 thousandths difference. So I'm really going to have to squeeze this bend radius down, flatten it out. At this point I've got the two sides pinched pretty nicely together. They'll get a little tighter than that, but they're pretty well closed. And we're still plenty big on the bend radius. I'm going to have to keep working on that. Yeah, I haven't gained anything hardly on that. 5 thousandths maybe. And I may have to go to the anvil to get that out farther, but I'll keep trying it in the vise for a while. It's nice and straight. Just keep working it until I get that back squeezed down to the thickness I want. If a guy had got a 3-ton arbor press or a 5-ton arbor press, this would go quite a bit quicker. Not nearly as much unscrewing as you do with a vise. If I can get the widest part of this, where the bend radius is, down to about 210 thousandths, 215, somewhere in there, that should be good. It'll be more than 25 thousandths thicker than this end, but once the blade's in there, that'll get close. Okay, that's got it where I need it. It's really very straight at this point. This is the best one I've done so far. In the past, I've tried to go too far too fast, and I'd put a big kink in it and then try and straighten that kink, and that would make the whole thing bend out of shape. So by taking my time and just slowly sneaking up on it, over about, I don't know, it took me about an hour to bend this with a couple of side tracks. So that's not too bad at all. And it is, I don't know if you can see it on camera, it has got some dents and dings in it from the vise, but those are pretty darn shallow. And I'll clean this up with a file and those will be gone. So you just have to be a little bit careful about that you don't put any big gouges in it. These are, 3 or 4 thousandths deep probably is all. So they'll file out nicely. That looks pretty good. That's actually not too bad there. I've got a pretty good straight there. Relatively straight here. More importantly, I'm straight here and on this bottom edge where the blade will go in, so that will determine how our tooth line comes out, I believe. So that's ready to do a little bit of filing and cleanup, and I think it might be ready to go. Okay, I've got my folded back, and I can sight down along this edge and it is just as straight as it can be. I mean, I'd had to do just the tiniest bit of tweaking at the anvil, and it would just, had just a ever so slight bow in it that was almost undetectable. And I also hammered it down this way because it had a little bit of just a tiny bit. It's very straight now. I can put a straight edge on it in any direction and it's dead on. So at this point, one of the problems I have, and I think I can get it to show up in the video, you can probably see some shiny spots here where the vise pinched it a little bit, and those are a few thousandths deep, nothing too much to get excited about. This steel that I bought at Lowe's was I don't know if it's a CAD plating or a zinc plating. It's got something on it, and I really don't want that on there anyway. So what I'll do is I'll file this whole surface, both sides, and get those marks out and take the finish off at the same time. And I'll of course do the top edge and sand it all down nice and smooth and get it ready to use. Now, since this one came out so well, and actually came out better than the one I used on my dovetail saw, and let me show you why it's better, or should be better. If I hold this up to the light just right, you can see along in here there's some discrepancies in that reflection. It's not dead flat right into the back. This new back will fix that. I mean, this saw is just dead straight right at the tooth line and probably halfway up the blade. but then those little waves start in about here and get worse as they go to the top, and they're not very much, but it's just enough to really annoy the crap out of me, and because I know I can do better, and I think I have done better with this new back. So I think I'm going to replace that before I give it to my niece. And I tell her that she's my guinea pig. All the first run tools go to her, and then what I learn on those, I make a better one for myself. So she kind of knows that, but I want it to be as good as I can get it. So I think I can improve on this a little bit. So I'm going to continue to work on this back and get it ready to go. So I can flatten this side and get all the little dings out of it. I'm going to start with a double cut file. I guess that's about a 10-inch, and just slowly attack it here until I get the worst of the dings out of it, and then I'll switch over to a smoother file. So essentially what I'll end up doing here is taking more off at the top where the fold is, or closer to the fold, which will make this a little bit more parallel after I get the blade inside and get these two pieces spread apart, whatever the thickness of the blade is. It'll still have taper to it, but it won't be quite as much. And the steel is pretty soft, so you have to clean out your file quite a bit. I assume it's, like a cold rolled, like a 1018 steel. I don't know for sure, but it is a very mild steel. Now if I hold it like that, you can see a lot more easily where those dings are against the freshly filed steel. They're still a little bit deeper to go to get those out of there. But this is not as bad as the first one I did on the outside. I'm not quite sure what to do other than have a sheet metal shop bend this. I don't know what you could do to avoid those, because my jaws are smooth. I try to be as careful as possible. There's some things you just can't avoid. Now that I've got all the dings out, I'll go from my coarse file down to a smoother, just a mill bastard file that's a lot smoother. Try to get some of these marks out, and then after that I'll go to sandpaper.